Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji, Ratu Josiah Vorek Bainimarama, Your Excellency Honorable Dr. Mamfono Kaketla, Minister of Finance of the Kingdom of Lesotho and President of the 102nd Council Session, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I begin by expressing how deeply honored I am to welcome you to the ACP House for the 102nd session of the Council. A special welcome to the Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji, Ratu Josiah Vorek Bainimarama, whose presence with us today signals the high esteem the government and people of Fiji accord the ACP group. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in addressing this august gathering in May, I reminded the distinguished audience that this year is indeed an important one in the history of our group. It marks the 40th anniversary of the signing of the Georgetown Agreement, which brought into existence the ACP. The Secretariat worked closely with the Committee of Ambassadors to commemorate the occasion on the 4th and 5th of June in a manner befitting of the importance it richly deserves. Not only did we have stimulating symposia about our achievements and weaknesses, challenges and future path, but these were interspersed with cultural performances and culinary delights that celebrate our cultural diversity. Excerpts from the statements made during the 40th anniversary symposium have been compiled and will be published and distributed throughout our member states. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, we strongly believe that the ambition of the group must take into account ever-evolving and turbulent global dynamics. To deepen this awareness and increase the visibility of the group, the Secretariat has taken part in various international fora during the course of the year. These engagements contribute towards the goal of the ACP group to become an effective global player. Efforts have also been made to place the Secretariat closer to the ACP regions by participating in regional summits. We were particularly heartened to be in Port Moresby for the regional summit of the Pacific. Are given in my report, which will be presented later. While this year is significant as it marks the 40th anniversary of the ACP group, 2016 also will be an enormously important year in the history of the ACP. This is primarily because our leaders are expected to make definitive pronouncements regarding the future direction and structure of the group and its organs. Such pronouncements will follow the 7th Summit of Summit Heads of State and Government in Malabo in 2012 that unequivocally reaffirmed the position that the ACP must remain united as a group. Both the ACP on the one hand and the European Union on the other have begun a process of consultation and reflection regarding our future relations beyond 2020. These will gather momentum in the course of 2016. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, before concluding, allow me to allude to the issue of financial as well as human resources, which are a prerequisite to the continued well-being of the ACP in general and your Secretariat in particular. I would therefore like to appeal to Member States to step up your efforts towards the timely payment of statutory contributions in order to support the smooth function of the Secretariat and to fill essential posts. Additional voluntary contributions outside of statutory obligations that have been so admirably demonstrated, and to those countries providing such assistance, we are deeply grateful. In closing, I would like to place on record my deep appreciation for the extensive collaboration and support I have enjoyed from the Chair of the Committee of Ambassadors, the distinguished Ambassador Mepeo Mahes Moila of Lesotho, as well as the Bureau of the Committee of Ambassadors, and indeed the committee itself. I am also highly appreciative of the work done by the various working groups set up by the Committee of Ambassadors to implement your decisions from previous Council sessions. Finally, let me once again underscore the level of professional commitment demonstrated by the staff of the Secretariat in the discharge of their duties, an essential ingredient for this administration, Team 2020, so that we satisfactorily and with high acclaim fulfill our mandate. May I once again welcome you to the ACP House, your house and home, and I wish the 102nd ACP Council successful deliberations. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. I would just want to start by making my own opening remarks, and in so doing, pay my respects to Your Excellency, the Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji, Honorable Ministers, Secretary General, Excellencies, Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, and the media present today. I bring you warm greetings from the Kingdom of Lesotho, from His Majesty the King, the Head of State, and the Right Honorable the Prime Minister, Dr. Mosisili, the Prime Minister, and the people of the Kingdom of Lesotho. I am indeed delighted to be here, and it is an honor to preside over the affairs of the 102nd ACP Council session. From the outset, let me acknowledge the presence amongst us today of the Right Honorable the Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji, His Excellency Ratu Baena Marama. Your presence here, sir, in spite of your heavy schedule in Europe, is testimony to the high priority that you in person, the Republic of Fiji, and the Pacific region as a whole accords to the ACP group. You are very warm welcome in this cold Brussels morning.
Thank you.
Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you know that the main function of the end-of-year session of the ACP Council is the consideration and approval of the Secretariat's budget for the following year. This Council is no exception. However, we shall also find time to consider other several important matters as part of the Council's agenda. So my statement will be very brief this morning to allow us more time to deliberate on the issues at hand. It would, however, be remiss of me if I fail to make mention of the recent tragedies that befell Paris and the unfortunate loss of life. This has also led to the lockdown that we have in Brussels at the moment. Our hearts are with the families of the victims, and I have been informed that the Secretary General has communicated our support and solidarity to the government and people of France. Closer to home, on August 22nd, Tropical Storm Erika struck the Commonwealth of Dominica, resulting in 11 confirmed deaths. and an economic damage equivalent to approximately 90% of Dominica's GDP. The following month, on the 24th of September, during the annual Muslim Hajj in Saudi Arabia, an accident occurred that resulted in the deaths of more than 1,000 pilgrims, some of whom were nationals of ACP member states. Most recently, the terrorist attack and more loss of life occurred in Mali. There have also been occurrences in Cameroon. I would like to request you that we should rise for a moment of silence in respect of the departed victims and their bereaved families. Thank you. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, as we continue the fundamental exercise of charting the future of the ACP group, it is very important that we remain steadfast in adhering to the principles of unity and solidarity that are enshrined in the Georgetown Agreement, which is the foundation of our very existence. I must say that this year in particular, with so many international events, provided the perfect opportunity for the group to enhance its visibility and initiate beneficial ties with relevant global partners in pursuit of our overarching objective of repositioning the group as an effective global player. In these efforts, we should remain positive in our consideration of the future relations with our traditional partner, the European Union, on which we will have an opportunity to exchange views during the course of this meeting. Related to this, colleagues, we will be expected to take decisions on administrative issues aimed at enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of our Secretariat. I would like us to do this in an objective manner to ensure that we create a Secretariat that will indeed help in leading our group in the right direction and enable us to claim the rightful place in the global arena. These efforts that we will take will culminate in the decisions by our heads of state and government during the proposed 8th summit, which, if all goes according to plan, will be held in Papua New Guinea on the 31st May to the 1st of June 2016. Let me at this juncture express our gratitude on behalf of Council to the authorities of Papua New Guinea and the Pacific region at large for the kind offer. You will recall that we have been struggling to get a host for this summit of heads of state and government. Another important element impacting on our effectiveness as a group is the issue of financial resources. You may recall that when we met here in May this year, only 16 out of the 79 member states had paid up their statutory contributions. We commend those countries that have paid in full or partially towards the 2016 budget. As at the 17th of November, the number had increased by 14 to 30 members. This still, however, means that 49 out of the 79 members of the ACP group are still to pay their statutory contributions. I would like to take this opportunity to join the Secretary General to appeal to member states to pay their full contributions on time. While acknowledging the financial and economic challenges many of our countries are facing, paying our full contributions takes us one step further towards reducing our dependency on external funding. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, climate change is no longer just a theory. It has impacts and far-reaching effects on sustainable development, especially in developing countries. We have ahead of us one of the major conferences, COP21, taking place in Paris in the next week. It is upon us to ensure that our voice is audible enough to secure the commitments of that group in seeking to address the challenges of climate change. The Secretary General will represent us at that meeting. And we will recall that during the 101st session of Council, we agreed on the creation of the Small Islands Development States Forum within the ACP group. This is a commendable effort, and we hope that its implementation will go a long way in enhancing the group's contribution towards mitigation of the challenges of climate change. The apex of this year's important international meetings is the holding of the 10th WTO conference in Nairobi, Kenya. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the ACP Ministers of Trade, the Secretariat, both the Geneva and Brussels ACP groups of ambassadors for preparing for our participation in this meeting. We also wish the government and people of Kenya success in holding such a conference. Mr. Prime Minister, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude my statement by thanking the chair of the Committee of Ambassadors and my own compatriot, Her Excellency Ambassador Mpeo Mahase Muilwa, as well as the Committee of Ambassadors for the hard work that they have undertaken to implement the decisions we made in the last sessions. We also want to appreciate the effort made by the staff of the Secretariat, led by the Secretary General, who continue to provide technical support to the Committee of Ambassadors. I have been informed that the Secretariat has worked tirelessly to prepare for our Council meeting, and we truly appreciate their efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and at this juncture, I wish to humbly request His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Fiji, to deliver his keynote address. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, the President of the 102nd ACP Council of Ministers, Honorable Ministers, the Secretary General of the ACP Group of States, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Bula Vinaka, and a very good morning to you all. Mr. President, Madam President, we gather here today, the nations of Africa, the Caribbean and the Pacific, in friendship and in solidarity, and especially in solidarity with the people of France, who are mourning the 130 people who were killed in the terrorist attacks 11 days ago. We also express solidarity with Belgium, as its people also face down the terrorist threat. Our message to Islamic State is simple. We may flinch, but we will never yield. You have united all of us from all faiths in horror, but you've also united us in steely determination. Fiji condemns these atrocities in the strongest possible terms, and we will do everything we can to contribute to the global opposition to terrorism. There is no excuse for these acts of terror, and especially in the name of God, because this is not God's way. The major religions of the world, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, are one on the sanctity of human life. And we must stand up to those who perversely twist the word of God to justify their crimes on earth. Madam President, the destructive nature of Islamic State, its manipulation of religion to justify its murderous rampages, its suppression and exploitation of the people under its control, and its celebration of death is in stark contrast to the nobility of our own organization. We have formed the largest trading bloc in the world to empower the estimated 1 billion people within our borders, to bring them the benefits of development, to give them the means to improve their lives and those of their families. to replace poverty with prosperity, to give them a better future, to give them hope. We enhance lives while Islamic State and other terrorist groups take them. We create opportunity while they destroy it. We bring people of different backgrounds together to celebrate our common humanity while they advocate division and hatred. In our patient collaboration lies the answer to the world's challenges, while they are a death cult that revels in misery and mass murder. We have survived as an organization for 40 years and are planning even greater cooperation in the years ahead. More trade, more development, more opportunities. Their days are numbered because they offer nothing but the blood of innocence and blasphemy. The word of God twisted to justify the unjustifiable. Madam President, Fiji joins the gathering in reaffirming our determination to oppose the terrorist threat and to pledge once again our allegiance to the ideals of the ACP group, already the largest trading bloc in the world, and soon to welcome our 80th member, South Sudan. I'm delighted and honored to address you at such a critical time, both for the world and our organization. It is a time of both great challenge and great opportunity. And even for a small country like Fiji, events are moving quickly and we need to constantly adjust and adapt. My current visit to Europe is a vivid illustration of the ever-changing global environment and the need to actively seek out opportunities. In London on Friday, I addressed the International Sugar Council on the challenge of ensuring a sustainable future for the 200,000 Fijians who depend on our sugarcane industry, our second biggest revenue earner after tourism. Yesterday, I pressed Fiji's case for better trade opportunities in successive meetings with EU commissioners and officials. Today, I'm with you all as we continue forging a path forward for the ACP after the Cotonou Agreement expires in 2020. Tomorrow, I will be in Malta, addressing the Commonwealth Business Forum on the transformation we are making to Fiji's infrastructure. On Thursday, I will be in Paris for the Oceania Summit with France. On Friday, I will be back in Malta for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And then I head back to Paris for what Fiji considers is the most important gathering of all, the United Nations Conference on Climate Change. Madam President, I know that many ACP members who are either small island developing states or who have low-lying areas exposed to the sea share my alarm at the clear and present danger we face. The extreme weather events accompanying climate change are already having a devastating impact on countries such as Fiji, whether they are parching droughts killing our agriculture or howling cyclones coming out of nowhere and killing our people and destroying our infrastructure. Rising sea levels are already claiming large reaches of coastal land and forcing the evacuation of entire settlements. And in the case of three of our neighbors, Kiribati, Tuvalu, and the Marshall Islands, these sovereign countries, members of the United Nations, seem destined to sink beneath the waves altogether. Never before in the entire sweep of human history has the Pacific been so threatened, not from invasion and war, nor the testing of nuclear weapons, all of which we endured in the last century, but from the sea. Rising as the ice caps melt and the average global temperature climbs because of the carbon emissions of the industrialized nations. From the factories that have made them rich, the energy they burn, the cars they drive, the planes they travel in. We haven't caused this crisis. They have. In fact, Fiji's contribution to carbon emissions is a meager 0.4%. Yet, we are still willing to play our part to cut this tiny amount by 30% by 2030, almost entirely by embracing sustainable energy sources and reducing our use of fossil fuels to just 1%. We have also offered to give permanent refuge in a worst-case scenario to the people of our closest neighbors, Kiribati, and Tuvalu. And we are comprehensively building our resilience to climate change, whether it is moving flooded settlements to higher ground or preparing our people for the even more devastating and unpredictable cyclones the scientists say are coming. Our message in Paris next week will be simple. We are doing what we can to help ourselves. It is now time, it is high time for the industrialized nations to do what they must do to save us and save our planet. They must cut their carbon emissions and by much more than many of them are planning to do. We salute the people of Europe for committing themselves to a 40% cut in carbon emissions by 2030. But those nations that are balking at drastic actions, what I've called the collision of the selfish, need to be prodded out of their complacency. It is 5 minutes to midnight, and soon it will be too late. The Pacific Island nations are going to Paris next week with what we have called the Super Declaration, a position we agreed on at a summit in the Fijian capital of members of the PIDF, the Pacific Islands Development Forum. This declaration calls on the global community to adopt legally binding measures to cap global warming at 1.5% above pre-industrialized levels, instead of the 2% that is currently envisaged. And we are asking every nation, including our ACP partners, to support this measure as the only viable way to stave off catastrophe. Madam President, honorable ministers, delegates, I beg you all to heed the voice of the Pacific and voices of other low-lying areas of the world. It is morally unacceptable to sacrifice our survival to maintain the current status in the developed and emerging nations. And history will judge us very harshly if at this point in time we fail to act, to do what is necessary to save us. We who have not benefited from the riches of the industrialized era are not polluting the planet ourselves, yet who stand to lose the most. Whole islands, whole countries, our agriculture, our lifestyle, our economy, our way of life. We need the industrialized nations to realize that if they don't act, it will be to their ultimate cost, because they are merely delaying the inevitable. Embrace a more sustainable energy future now, and the pain will be far less than having to do it later. Embracing a clean, green future, as Fiji has, is actually a huge plus, a selling point for any nation in the world that increasingly values sustainable development. So I appeal to the industrialized nation to examine the clear benefits of acting now rather than leaving it until it is all too late. Madam President, as well as ensuring our survival, it is equally vital that the Pacific nation and the ACP continue to enjoy the benefits of development, which leads me to the current impasse in our negotiations with the European Union on a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. The Pacific ACP has an interim agreement, but not a comprehensive agreement, because the EU is adamant that negotiations on a comprehensive EPA cannot be concluded without a review of fisheries conservation and management measures. Whereas our view is that this issue, however important, should not stand in the way of a full agreement being reached. Fiji believes that we urgently need to find a solution to this impasse that takes into account the commitments that we have made on fisheries conservation and the progress made thus far. We also need a high-level ministerial meeting between the Pacific ACP and EU, not only on this issue, but the issue of Papua New Guinea's withdrawal from the comprehensive EPA negotiations. Madam President, because of this impasse, the Pacific ACP states are effectively the only ACP states left without a comprehensive EPA. Or as some of my officials describe it, we are EPA orphans. And from our standpoint, we are being unfairly disadvantaged and our development impeded. As you know, the intention of the EU's EPAs with the ACP was to continue its historical trading relations with these regions after the expiration of the Cotonou Agreement. It is all about development. And when one region misses out because the negotiations are dragging on for too long, it obviously has an adverse effect on nations such as Fiji. We have produced a detailed matrix of where any development assistance would be targeted under a full EPA. We are especially looking to these initiatives to build our nation's trade capacity, address our trade-related infrastructure needs, and all other issues related to the implementation of a full EPA. So there is a great deal at stake here, and I have appealed to the EU commissioners and other officials I met here yesterday to assist us in facilitating a speedy solution to this impasse. Madam President, honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, I imagine that by now some of you are thinking that Frank is being frank. Well, I make no apology for it. Fiji has found its voice on these issues. The Pacific has found its voice, and we intend to make our voices heard more strongly in the great forums of the world, including this one, because there is far too much at stake to remain silent. We are happy, friendly people who don't like causing offense and are famous for hospitality the world over. But perhaps we in the Pacific have been too Pacific for too long. When our islands are threatened, when our way of life is threatened, when we expect a fair deal in world trade and don't always get it, when there are barriers to taking the Fijian-made product and brand of goods and services to global markets and earning our people the rewards they deserve for their hard work, then I think it is time to speak up, not with raised voices, but with words of reason. Because for this Fijian, fair play extends way beyond the rugby field. And I think that Fiji and other Pacific nations deserve a fair hand than the industrialized nations who hold all the cards are currently dealing us. For each part, Fiji will continue to raise its voice on behalf of all Pacific peoples and those in other parts of the developing world. We will maintain our foreign policy of being friends to all and enemies to none, although we will certainly urge a tough stance against nations that support terrorism. We will continue our commitment to UN peacekeeping, sending our troops far from our island home to put their lives on the line for the sake of vulnerable, ordinary people in troubled parts of the world. And I can assure you, Your Excellencies, that we intend to strengthen our engagement with multilateral forums such as this one. Fiji is proud to have been a founding member of the ACP, a unique organization that is 40 years young. Together we have done much to improve the lives of the 1 billion people around the world who look to us to provide them with empowerment and provide them with opportunity. And as we work on the blueprint to take our partnership with the EU beyond 2020, let us never forget that our ultimate responsibility is to them. An ordinary woman fetching water from a well in Africa, an ordinary fisherman in the Caribbean, a child in the Pacific heading off to school. Madam President, honorable ministers, delegates, that is why we are here today in this great fellowship of nations spanning the continents, asserting that the true path to genuine justice for disadvantaged people the world over isn't through terrorism or armed struggle, but economic development. It was wonderful to have many of you in Fiji back in June for the 29th session of the ACP-EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly. Great days lie ahead for our organization if we can stay united and focused. And now I have much pleasure in declaring the 102nd session of the ACP Council of Ministers open. Thank you and God bless you all. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of us that you have spoken from the heart and you are leading from the front. We heartily thank you for such a profound message, and we wish you well as you crisscross Europe in seeking a better life for Fijians, for the Pacific region, and the whole of the developing world. Thank you very much again. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, may we rise for while we allow the Prime Minister to leave the room, and we'll resume immediately. Thank you.
Thank you.